All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Christina, and I'm with my special guest, Dr. Nancy Brown Willis. Nancy V. Brown Willis, Dr. Nancy V. Brown Willis, and she's here to share her story, her testimony, and the title of this show, Redemption and Recovery, is about but God moments. And I have her here because I think she has a very, very powerful story and powerful testimony. So without further ado, we're going to jump into it. Dr. Nancy, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Nancy. I'm a survivor of a lot of different forms of abuse. I'm also, at-risk youth. So I do talk about that as well. And I try to be supportive to parents as I'm a parent. I have 4 children, 3 adult children, and a 15-year-old who's going to the 10th grade. So tomorrow's school. So I've been working on that all day, but getting back, and 2 grandchildren, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So, having said that, I understand that I've had to do parenting a little different. I've had to change some things along the way. At one point, I was very strict, and now, I try to work around that. But I love the Lord. I haven't always been at my best. I've gone through a lot of different stages of my recovery and my healing, and I just try to be as supportive as I can. I try to give of myself, and so I do a lot of advocacy around suicide prevention, mental health. I'm an advocate for those things. Child sexual abuse survivors. I advocate for those survivors of abuse, different things like that. And anything that I personally experience, I try my best to live a life of purpose and give back and be used as much as I can on this earth while I'm here. And thank you for having me tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Can you describe what is an at-risk youth for those who don't know or may have heard that term before?
For me personally, an at-risk youth is a youth who's at risk of behaviors that can be very risky. That could be early childhood pregnancy, teen pregnancy, so either childhood, meaning they're not even a teenager, right? Or
Right.
teen pregnancy, suicide, depression, anxiety, um, abuse, entering into early relationships while they're still very young, maybe with older men and or with older women. And just doing risky things, maybe alcohol, drugs, things that they're not really prepared to deal with. And so at risk, running away, not listening to your parents, not going to school. Those behaviors are very risky that can lead you down a path to trouble.
Yes. Now, do you want to share anything about your childhood? Because I know you also have Brave Girls
Rise up.
Rise Up.
And so, yeah. And so for me, I went through a child sexual abuse at a very early age. I was 5 years old. I shared that. And that was very traumatic for me. It was very difficult, very hard to process. And I didn't know anyone around me who had been through a similar type of abuse or a similar type of situation. It was a close family member, so I didn't know anyone who had been through that type of abuse. So,
Right.
it wasn't like something that you would talk about openly. Like today, as I speak, I'm around other survivors, and so I'm more empowered. But when I was younger, I was the only survivor alone, standing alone. And my voice, I still didn't have a voice. I still didn't know my voice, right? I still didn't
Right.
find my voice. And so being a young child, age 5, it's like, how do you process what you're dealing with? How do you speak about it? Who do you share with? And then the loyalty, love, and respect you have for your abuser, because it was a close family member. So for me, growing up, it was very difficult. It was very challenging, and today I'm able to talk about those things because I'm around other strong survivors, and able to build connections with other strong survivors as yourself.
Yes, yes. There was something else that was very powerful about your story. I don't know if you want to talk about that, was the incident with the dog that
Hmm.
had attacked you.
Yeah. So like I shared, at age 5, I went through child sexual abuse. And then at age 6, the day I graduated from kindergarten, I
Mm.
was, my mom was a maid. And so we lived with this very rich, wealthy man. So we had the maid's house, and then we had the rich, his
Wow.
house.
Mhm.
And in between the yard, we used to have a lot of dogs. So we used to have like probably 20 something dogs because he had a lot of farms and a lot of properties. And so we always had German shepherds. I believe he was German, and yeah, I believe he was German. But anyways, he used to get on, or he was either Swedish or German. I don't remember right this second. Don't quote me.
Sounds like a
But
big dog.
we always had, well, no, the boss, he was
Yes.
Swedish. So we always had German shepherds. And so at this point, we had this new dog that joined the family, and this dog was a Doberman Pinscher, and he
Mm.
was a teenager. So before he came in the picture, me and the one that we had, her name was Asta, and she was my best friend. And I used to play with her, sleep with her, do everything with her. She was my best friend, so I could like literally ride her, and she would just take me
Right.
on top of her back. So my mom, the day I graduated from kindergarten, my mother told me go across the yard and change your dress. And I had a custom made dress. My mom had a dress made for me. It had flowers on it. And she said, go change it and come back. And I used to like rub my mother's back or do little massages. And I used to get like, a treat after. And so I was like, all right, let me go change my dress and, figure out what we're doing next. So I went across the yard, and I saw both the dogs. They were chained to the pole that stood in the middle between two houses.
Mhm.
So I went to our house and I changed my dress. When I was coming back out, I noticed that the Doberman Pinscher was on top of the German Shepherd. And I didn't know what was going on. I was 6 years old. All I knew is she's my best friend. Don't touch my best friend because I'm going to protect my best friend.
Right.
And so I went up to the dog and I slapped him on the butt to get her off of her. But I didn't realize he was a teenager, and he was trying to, get on top of the dog.
Right, right, right.
And he was on top of the dog. So I don't know if it hurt him. I don't really understand at that time what was going on. But I know that when I hit him, he just turned around and he grabbed me by my neck, and I literally didn't touch the floor. I remember him tossing me side to side like a rag doll. And I just remember falling asleep. But before I fell asleep, I looked down and I saw her biting his leg, trying to get him off of me. She was just like vigorously shaking his leg, trying to get him off of me.
Mm.
And and yeah, that's what happened there. So my mom said I was calling her. I'm pretty like, I still remember the situation like pretty clearly. I don't remember calling my mother. She said I was calling her, then I stopped and I called her and I called her and I stopped. And I told my mother that was the angels, because I'm telling you for right now, I wasn't calling you, but okay. So she said when she came out, the scene that she saw was so horrific that if she said, and the thing about it is at the time my mother was not didn't really like talk about God or believe like, care. I don't know if she didn't have a belief about God, but I didn't learn about God from my mother. So at that time when she told the story, she said it was like God illuminated this rock or this mop stick. I need to ask her again. But she said if she didn't see that rock or that mop stick, she wouldn't have been able to get him off of me. She would have just had to watch me die. And
Mm.
so she was able to hit him with the mop stick or the rock. I haven't asked her about that in forever since I was a little kid. And then when he moved away from me, she picked me up and she took me in our house. She put me down on the ground. She put towels, sheets on the couch and laid me on the couch. And I remember laying there and thinking, my favorite show's on. I want to get up and watch my favorite show, but I couldn't move. I was like, I can't move. This is weird. Like I couldn't move. And I would have got up and just put on the TV because after
Right.
school, my favorite show, Boo Boo House, would come on. So I knew what was going on, right? But I could not move. But we didn't have a phone in our little house. So my mom had to go across the yard past the dogs to his house to use the phone to call the ambulance. And then she called the ambulance, came back across the yard, got me out of the little house, and then had to go past the dogs with me because we lived at the top of the hill at the big gates.
Right.
And so my mom had to walk down the hill, and then she had to go on, and she was trying to speak to me, trying to keep me up. And I didn't know what she was doing, but we were talking, and she was just telling me, like, nice things, and speaking to me with love. And I remember that, like, the sun was on either her face or behind her, but however the sun was at the time, I remember thinking, like, she's so beautiful. My mom looked so beautiful at the time.
Right.
And the ambulance came, they took me to a hospital. The first hospital they took me to was just a nearby hospital to where we live. It was not the best of the best. And so they were about to close the hole. I had a hole in my throat. So they were about to close it. And our boss's wife, she said that she wanted me to go to the best hospital, which is where she had just had some hand surgery done. And the name of that hospital was Hospital Biblica, which means Bible Hospital. And
Wow.
so she had me sent to that hospital. And they told me, had the first hospital done that surgery, I would have died, because the dog hit the main artery. And so they had to cut like an 8 to 9 inch. I have a 8.5, 9 inch scar down my neck. My face, he bit my face, and my head, my legs, my back. And so pretty much, my cheek was off. They had to put it back on.
Right.
And yeah, and they had to open me up enough to get to the main artery, because I would have internally bled. And so thank God that they made that choice last minute, because I would have just been like, yo, sew her up, like, sew it
Right.
now.
Right.
But if they would have done it that way, I wouldn't be here today to tell the story. So that's how that happened. So I lost my voice for a few weeks. I could not speak. And I went to stay with my father's mother, my grandmother. And I stayed with her. And my mom had to go back to work. And so I had a little bell. I'll ring the bell. And my grandmother was like, if you need anything, ring the bell.
Right.
And yeah, so that was that situation with the dog. And again, this is now, I was 5 years old, went through child sexual abuse. Now 6 years old, went through this traumatic experience. So growing up in the area where I grew up, it was predominantly white Spanish, and they were very racist, very prejudiced on blacks, Hispanics. So it's the same black white fight that's here in the U.S. We had the same
Mm.
fight, just in a different language. Okay.
Oh,
And
okay.
so at that time, while I was in school, those kids would call me big lip, ugly girl, black girl. You so ugly, you ugly big lip, black girl, big forehead, you're ugly. Mind you, now I'm Scarface. And so, I had a lot of brokenness on the inside of me, because now I had new issues added to my already broken spirit, and other things that I was fighting through in silence.
But that's a but God moment, because you could have died, and then
I
experiencing
died and
that.
came back. I died and came back.
So you live.
In my
Oh, wow.
experience, I died and came back in my
Wow.
experience. I
And
was on the newspaper in my country. It was like a big deal. My mom still has a newspaper article, and it was like a big deal in my country. I mean, attack by dog. It was like a dog attack. Like when you watch the news, they're talking about dog attack. It was
wow.
that situation in my country, in Costa Rica.
Now, despite those horrible things that happened to you, what is one of the childhood memories that you kind of maybe go back to, or that brings you comfort, that you can think about today?
Mhm. Well, one of the childhood memories that always brings me comfort is my grandmother was a woman of God. And so,
Okay.
even though my abuser was from her side of the family, and so I did have to deal, and my grandmother was white Spanish, like white like snow.
Okay.
Okay. You
Okay.
see her, you wouldn't think that's my grandmother. My
Okay.
grandfather was black like tar. And so one of the experiences that bring me comfort is that no matter what, we were a rainbow of grandchildren, very mixed. She had
Okay.
kids with different guys, a couple of different big daddies. And
Okay.
so her children were the rainbow. Her grandchildren were the rainbow. I have dark skinned cousins, dark, 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 light, like white, and it's just a mixture of us. We're in between,
Okay.
we're mixed, we're Indian looking, it's a mixture, right? But she always showed us love. And then she taught me about the Lord. She's the reason why I have a personal relationship with God or believe in God. My first encounter with the Lord was through her. She always taught me to say, La sangre de Cristo me cubre. That means the blood of Christ covers me. So if
Mm,
when I encounter a situation that I'm nervous or I'm scared, before this interview, I said the words, right? And those words always, it's just the blood of Christ covers me. And then I just always felt that when the blood of Christ covers me, because what she taught me, then I'm covered and I'm shielded from any attack. So even when I would take a shower and I'd be washing my hair, and when you're looking, you're washing your hair, like, oh my God, I need to like see what's going on real quick. I would just say, La
right.
sangre de Cristo me cubre. And that would bring me comfort on the spot, even with my eyes closed, that nothing could touch me because now there's a shield around me. And so that's a memory that I always hold close and dear to my heart.
That's
And a
beautiful.
couple of other, but that's one right there.
That's beautiful. The other thing too is kind of progressing in the age, age 13, age 14. I know you were saying that you had dealt with some homelessness. The child, you became a teenage parent. Do you want to talk about that, Dr.
Mhm.
Nancy?
Well, my first experience with homelessness, my second one was more self-induced because I ran away, right? And so
Okay.
I was sleeping in
Okay.
basements and acting up, right?
Wow.
Okay,
Right.
the first one was, before we worked for this wealthy man,
Hmm.
we got kicked out of where we lived. We lived with, we worked for a family and we got kicked out in the rain. I remember being outside in the rain with my mom with our bags and looking back at the window, and the owner's son would be looking through the window at us outside in the rain, sticking his tongue out at me. He was white Spanish, and during that time, there was a lot of that racism going on,
Right.
and just like wow, like people are so mean, people are so. It was like a reality check type of thing for me at that
Right.
time, and so that was my first experience. One of my mom's sisters, she allowed us to stay with her. So we went to a whole nother side of town and we stayed there for a little while until we moved into this new place. Um, and yeah, but I remember being outside with my mom, with the bags and just being like, wow, this is like serious.
Yeah.
But thank God that we were able to find somewhere to stay in the in between time for some time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
Mhm.
then with the teenage pregnancy, because I mean you say you have grandchildren, how people say black don't crack, because I mean you're beautiful already, but like you look so
Mhm.
young.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and so with my daughter, I was 14 going on 15 when I got
Okay.
pregnant with her.
Okay.
Okay. And my mother was not happy about it, obviously, but she was very supportive. She was very helpful. I actually reached out to an organization that gave me a crib, Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, because I actually got a chance to speak to them last year on a panel. We did a project together, and they were the ones who that organization sent me baby clothes, car seat, my baby's crib, and so I was very honored and I felt very blessed to be able to give back to them and be able to speak and advocate for other young moms and teen moms. And so that was very challenging because I was a single mom. I was younger. I dated an older guy, and then my daughter came out of that situation, and I became a single parent. You put in your mind like, oh, okay, you have a baby, it's all gonna work out, it's all
Right.
great. But no, the reality is people move on with their lives and you still
Right.
have to deal with the baby. So I worked at a salon. I used to not have a stroller. I used to walk with the car seat, which when I look at it now is so far. It blocks, some blocks are very short. The block where I'm from, the 2 blocks, if you see it, you'd be like, really? It's like 2 miles. This is
Right.
ridiculous, right?
Right.
And so I used to walk to get the bus with the car seat. I don't know why I did that, but I had the car seat. I didn't have a stroller. Like, later on, they had the strollers with the car seat. But when she was like 4 or 5 months, that umbrella stroller was too big for her. It was not a comfortable. That's a stroller for like a 2-year-old, 1-year-old.
Okay.
And so when I had her, I used to walk. I was jacked. I was in great shape, but I used to have that car seat in my hand and walk down the street and take her to work with me. I worked for a salon, and so that's what happened. Prior to my daughter, I had a rainbow baby. I
Okay.
talked about that in my event that I did with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. And that's why I ended up having my daughter because I had a lot of guilt associated with that. I was 13 years old, and my mom was definitely not really trying to have that. And I had a lot of guilt with having to give that baby and not give birth to it.
Okay.
And so that's why I ended up getting pregnant early because I had a lot of guilt and I wanted my baby back. I felt so guilty.
Okay.
And so that's how that happened. But at the end of the day, um, I really felt that that I would be a better parent than what I had experienced. I felt like, okay, this person's gonna love me. The silly things that you hear people say,
Right.
I'm gonna be a
Right.
better parent. And you don't really realize that these little babies grow up and then they're
Right.
teenagers, and then you have a whole bunch of other issues to deal with. So
Right.
I had, so my daughter gave me a work, later on. My sons, they didn't really give me work. But I got to take some of my own medicine because I gave my mother work. I ran away. I acted out. My mother worked nights. So prior to my daughter, when I had my daughter, I got my act straight. So I'll just come back prior to my daughter. I know you came to the pregnancy, but before my daughter came, that's when I was at risk youth, 11,
Okay.
12, 12.
Okay.
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 I hadn't really dealt with my own trauma. I hadn't really dealt with my own trauma. I started skipping school because we had moved, and every time I went to a new school, I had to deal with mean girls. I had to deal with mean girls. Most of the schools that I went to, they were black, mostly for black people in the school. The girls would be jealous, get jealous because their boyfriend looked at me or whatever have you. And so I always had to deal with that drama when I went to a new school or a new place. I'm like, Lord, help me, Lord.
Right.
And so the girls would want to beat me up after school. And I didn't even talk to nobody because I was trying to learn English. I came to the US, I didn't know English.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it was, I had a language barrier, and I looked different. And so then I try to like hang out with the cool girls because I figured, look, if I can't beat them, I might as well join them because these other girls over there were trying to beat me up. Let me just be bad with the bad girls, and So then I started trying to hang out with the bad girls and skip school, and that became an issue. So my mother got really upset because she's like, "Come on, I didn't bring you all this way for this. How dare you?" And so my mom got a probation officer involved, and I had to go in front of the judge. And the judge was like, "Oh, okay, wait a minute. You came from a whole nother country." The judge was so nice to me. It's an older white lady. She reminded me of
Okay.
Judge Judy. And she just looked at me and was like, "You are so smart. I'll never forget. I remember I was so nervous that day. I was like, I had braids, one blonde, one brown, one blonde, one brown. I didn't even know why she was being nice to me because I looked like I would have been like, I would judge me back then.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
no, the lady, the lady was like, because salt and pepper was hot back then, and certain things
Right.
were in
Right.
style. And so, I was just trying to fit in. And then she just spoke to me like, "You're real smart. You're able to master your language the way you're able to speak right now, and the way you're able to express yourself. It's only been 3 years." Like, she
Wow.
really just broke it down, and she really showed me a lot of love. Like, you know, I think that had a lot to do with me turning my life around because I had ran away. I went through the juvenile justice system. I went in foster care. Like, it went real quick.
Right.
And like
Right.
within a month and a half, I got out of it. A month and a half after foster care, I got out of it, and I went back home and I got back on the right path. When
Okay.
I had my daughter, that's when I turned my life around. I was like, I have to turn my life around. I have to show her what not to be, and that's when I got real straight. Because I had
Okay.
dropped that in the eighth grade. I was pregnant with my daughter when I dropped out of school. I dropped that in the eighth grade.
Right.
So when I went back to school, I got my GED. I went to night school. My mom watched the baby. I took my daughter to daycare across the street. I paid for the daycare and I went to work, or I would take her to work with me in between. So I just focused. I worked really hard. My mom saw I worked very hard. Um, and then, I tried to just change the whole game. I went back to school, I got my GED, and then I went back to school. I got my associate's degree in criminal justice. I just kept going back to school. I'm always in school. I'm still in school. I'm in school. I'm always in school.
Right.
And so it's something that I always did to try to forgive myself, heal myself, and help others, encourage others, and give other people hope because I lost hope. I share that around age 13, this way before my daughter, I tried to take my life. I was dealing with depression. I was dealing with this disappointment, mean girls, bullies, all of those things. It was just overwhelming and very tiresome, fighting from the age of 5, 6, going back to school, hearing Scarface, ugly girl, black girl, big nose, you ugly, big forehead, big ugly Scarface, ugly girl. All those things after a while, it's very tiresome from 5
Right.
years old to always have to fight, always have to defend, and always have to survive. And it wasn't that I wanted to kill myself. I wanted the pain to stop.
Mm.
I just wanted the pain to stop. I was exhausted and I just wanted peace. And so at this point today, I just get away from anybody who's mean and offensive or disrespectful. I disappear.
Right.
I'd be like,
Right.
girl, I'm so busy because I give
Mm.
back and I do so much for the community that I don't argue with people. I just remove myself because I don't have the energy. By that time, I didn't know how to do that because I was a people pleaser. I love
Right.
people. I love people. I love helping people. And I love to see people win. And I love to see people turn their lives around. I
Right.
feed off of that. So, all right. I'll let you if you have any other
No,
questions.
no, no. Let's kind of go back really, really quickly. I know you mentioned healthy
Hmm.
families. I used to work
Hmm.
with Healthy Start and Healthy Families. So to those, if you're a teen parent, whether teen father, teen mother, or a parent who has a teen that is pregnant, you can definitely look into those resources, Healthy Start, Healthy Families, go to your local health department. They can definitely help out. I know in St. Pete, Florida, there is the Next Step Pregnancy Center where they can also help out with clothing and things like that. If you feel like, you've had a baby, please don't just disregard your baby in the trash can. I just seen something on the news the other day where girl had left her baby in a dumpster. And I know, what is that? Brenda had a baby. I think that was Tupac that talked about that. You can, if you feel like overwhelmed and you can't take care of your baby and you don't know what to do, you can go to fire station. There's like a secret drop box. You'll see it has like a little baby sign. The hospitals, go there. Just try not to put your baby in a dumpster. I actually have a good friend who her mom did that to her. So thank you for mentioning
Hmm.
that, Nancy.
Hmm. It was Healthy Mom,
Dr.
Healthy
Nancy.
Baby. But
Okay.
definitely, yes, there's a lot of organizations. So the more we know about the better it is. And
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
right. Instead of getting rid of your baby, I know that recently there was a mom who dropped the baby off at the fire station, and I thought that that was a safe place to drop the baby off.
Right.
Also, I know they used to have like Angel Baby or Angel something where you
I've
drop the
heard of
baby
that.
off.
Okay.
I posted it before. I just can't think because I have so many names in my mind right now. But I thought it was a safe place, and now they were trying to press charges against her and all types of stuff, which I completely disagree with.
Oh,
With
wow.
mental illness, postpartum depression is real. I've experienced it. Anytime you have any type of surgery, people don't know that anytime you have any type of surgery, you can hit postpartum and or depression at a severe, heavily severe. Postpartum not because it's after you give birth, but I had C-sections, and so people
Mm,
don't understand that postpartum can come from surgery,
okay.
and then depression can come from surgery, severe depression. I had a different form of surgery that had nothing to do with babies. I hit a heavy, hot, dark place. And then I
Mm,
did research and realized, okay, some of this is right after surgery every time. And it was linked to when someone has surgery, a lot of times they hit that dark depression state.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for mentioning that. So not just postpartum, not just having a baby. You can be a man and have surgery and still deal with some depression. So thank you for mentioning that. And then
Severe,
just
yeah.
severe depression. And then Dr. Nancy, you mentioned you feel like you lost hope at age 13. What
Mhm.
kind of encouragement, like if you could talk to that 13-year-old girl right now who was just feeling like, like I don't want to kill myself, but I just want to end the pain. Like, what kind of encouragement would you have for the 13-year-old Nancy, your Dr. Nancy now, but little Nancy? What would you say to her today?
You know, well, to be honest with you, the first thing that came to my mind when you said that is I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's the first thing
Amen.
that came to my spirit and my mind at the second when
Mm,
you said it. A lot of times, if kids are not raised by someone of faith, a lot of times those things don't may not hold weight right away.
right.
But still, I believe that sharing that will give people hope and encourage them that this is just a chapter in the book. That's one of the things I talk about. There's so many stories in the book, so many chapters in the book, but this is just a chapter, and there's two will pass. And,
Mm,
let's focus on writing goals down. What would you like to see? What are some of the things that you like to see for yourself? I remember I used to draw. I used to enter drawing competitions. I used to win first place and second place, neck and neck all the time with one of my classmates. And also, my mom had put me at the Mass College of Art. I used to at the Mass Museum, at the Massachusetts Museum of Fine Art. I
okay.
used to go to the summer camp program and I used to paint and draw the sculptures. I used to draw and paint the sculptures that were there.
Right.
And I remember that someone said to me, I think it might have been a counselor. Okay. I was drawing people. People would give me a picture and be like, you draw my baby, you draw me. I was 12, 13 years old.
Wow.
And I remember somebody said to me, you don't make money till you die. So I quit. I would encourage people, adults, to never do that, to a child because you don't know. I mean, now I draw like a little 12-year-old because I didn't keep, if you don't use it,
You
you lose
lose
it.
it. Right.
That
Right.
was it right there. Now I'd be like, just forget it. But once in a blue moon, like if I go to like a sip and paint or something like that, and I do a little painting, I do see like, okay, it's in there. Maybe I need to tap a little more into that because,
Right.
I'm an artist. And so when I do my creative avant-garde hair, that's my expressive way of doing art. When I do my poetry, that's my expressive way of doing art. When I write, that's my expressive way of doing art. But I lost that part of me that could draw because I allowed someone to take that from me. So today I would just say, don't allow anyone to kill your dream. Don't let anybody's negative words, anybody's negativity have an impact. You can be the next Picasso, you could be the next Maya Angelou, you could be the next why not? And why can't you be?
Right.
And so I would encourage anybody my age at that time or myself at that time to forget them. Why do you even
Mhm.
care what they got to say? Because I used to go to the art store, pick out, there were certain pencils. I was like getting into it because there was that guy, I wrote about him in my book. I can't remember his name. He had the afro. He used to paint on TV back in the days with his bell bottoms. You know what I'm talking about? It's a
Nah,
white guy. He
I
had the
don't
afro
know.
and the goatee. He's in my book. And anybody who's listening to this, I'm sure if they comment, they'll know who I'm talking about. But
Mhm.
he used to paint like beautiful sceneries, and I used to watch him during the day. I was a little 12-year-old kid watching
Okay.
this man and like, wow, so talented this man was, so respected. And they still talk about him to this day. He has made history, and that's what I looked up to when I was growing up. And I kind of, regret that I allowed someone's bad words and comments over my life to have a change in the path and direction that God had for me in
Mm,
that time.
thank you for sharing that. And I know we're going to progress a little bit more. You mentioned your book, but you didn't mention the name of it or how people can actually purchase your book.
Mhm. Well, interestingly enough, a couple of people did purchase it on Amazon, but I don't have it for sale on Amazon. So I've heard that
Okay.
there's some people that had their used book on sale. I have to contact Amazon and see what's going on with that with my book because that's a whole nother situation.
Okay.
But the name of my book is My Costa Rican Hummingbird Sings, Breaking the Bondage and Answering the Call.
Mm,
And God was really dealing with me in 2017. He had me focus on the suicide rate going up. He had me writing about addiction, recovery, child abuse, sexual abuse, anxiety, depression, and really hit things head on in the nose. Talk about medications, talk about side effects of medications, talk about natural medicine and other things. And so it was a very sensitive time because I was really at that time kind of walking in ministry. And so it was like kind of a battle in between things that I shouldn't be saying or felt that maybe I was overstepping my boundaries speaking, but
okay.
God was speaking through me at that time and I was being obedient. And so I allowed him to use me to write that book. I was mad at God. And I know that this has nothing to do with the question you asked me. The name
No,
of
no,
the
you're
book again
good.
is My Costa Rican Hummingbird Sings, Breaking the Bondage and Answering the Call. That book, I personally don't have it for sale right now because I want to split it up a little bit. For someone who's going through depression, anxiety, dealing with at-risk youth, talking about foster care and running away, run away. I have different chapters. I have a chapter called The Judge. I talk about how, again, the judge dealt with me at that time and the love that the judge showed, how it turned my life around. And later
Right.
on, I was able to go to school for for criminal justice, and I worked behind um, the the probation officer desk, and people would come up to me like, "You're on that side of the desk," and I was like, "Won't he do it?" And I
Right.
had to deliver papers to the judge upstairs at the probation after come from probation, go upstairs through the doors that the judge came out of, and to watch myself doing those things. It was
Right.
just like a God moment, that
Right.
only God can do it. Only God can do it because I could have been behind bars. I could have been ended up underground in the
Right.
path that
Right.
I was walking. And so, God has been amazing, but I know I'm skipping all over the place, but
No,
so
no,
much to touch. And sometimes, to be quite honest, 30 minutes or hour is just not enough.
it's
It's
not.
just
It's
not
not.
enough.
It's not. So we're going to segue into like, what are the things that you're doing now? I know you do, is it mental health counseling or one-on-one
I do.
coaching,
Yeah.
depression and
I
bipolar? Okay.
mhm. So I do mm, I facilitate support groups for um, people who are dealing with depression, bipolar, dual
Mhm.
diagnosis,
Okay.
anxiety, suicidal ideation, different things, and just really help create a safe space where they can share, talk, and take notes because as we're talking to other survivors, we learn a lot. We learn
Oh
about
yeah.
different types of therapy. We learn about different medications that can be very, very, that are on certain lists. We are not in that particular group allowed to talk too much about the names of medications, but people are still able to share certain experiences. We
Okay.
have newly diagnosed adults in the group, which is very, very, very hard
Mm,
because if you're just now being diagnosed, but you've been living your whole life and you didn't realize, once you start dealing with drugs, when you're talking about medication, when you're talking about drugs from the street or medication
right.
and maybe they're dealing with like a headache or they're dealing with a little depression and then the drug will take them somewhere completely different.
Right.
Alcohol or anything like that can trigger these things to come out after a certain age, after age, and when you're in your 20s and 30s, that's sometimes when the bipolar starts to show up. And so that can be very difficult for people
Right.
and very lonely place. So we just create a safe space where people can talk about their diagnosis or some of their symptoms and encourage them to seek the proper help and how
Okay.
to go about doing that in a safe space.
Okay. Now, is there an age limit for this group or?
So for this particular group, I don't know if there's an age limit. I mean, everyone that I've seen in that particular group is 18 years old. Me personally, I do one-on-one coachings.
Okay.
So I do every age. I'm currently working with children who have
Okay.
experienced um, watching someone take their lives by suicide. And so I do counseling, Christian counseling, and regular
Okay.
counseling. for that, and coaching. I
Okay.
do a lot of coaching and counseling. I also train staff. I go on site and train staff who, let's say, an employee has taken their life at work
Okay.
or outside of work, and now we need to try to get the staff to understand, hey, here are some resources. This is what you can do if you need some support. If you need to talk to someone, these are some resources. There, these are some support groups.
Right.
These are we're here. I'm here. I'm on site, and also answer questions. I train management, the managers, on how to deal with the staff if they need support, and
Okay.
or how to diffuse and deal with the gossiping, and train them on how to make sure you speak to the staff. Also deal with the staff directly on that topic. But like, don't go up to somebody and be like, hey, what happened there? I heard them they killed it. No, 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 no.
Right. Right.
So I'm normally the person that'll go in there and do those type of trainings. But I also do a lot of work in the community. I'm one of the board of directors for NAMI. That's the
Okay.
National Foundation on Mental Illness. I'm sorry, National Association on Mental Illness. It's so many different abbreviations. I
Right.
also work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and that's the AFSP. So it's like, there's a lot of abbreviations to remember. So please
Yeah.
excuse me, but I do a lot of work in the community in the areas that I know that I can speak on, and the
Okay.
areas that I know that God has given me authority to speak about and to
Okay.
help others. And so, yeah, so I do a lot of that. I'm on the radio with NASCA. That's the National Association for Survivors of Abuse. We do a lot of talks around child abuse survivors, mental health, and the different things that are associated. Because once, a lot of times when, and we're talking about the youth in this programming today, a lot of times when kids are acting up, if you sit them down and you find out, hey, what has happened? What's going on with you? What do you think has bothered you in the past or has caused
Right.
you
Right.
to be upset? What are you angry about? If you really take a moment and they tell you somebody killed themselves in front of me, somebody sexually abused me, somebody punched me, somebody abused my mom, and I watched her get abused. I used to have to call 911 and have watched my mom get abused and crying on the phone, calling the police. Uh, Hearing my mother get like punched to a pulp, black eye pushed downstairs. People don't know some of the things that I've witnessed and that some of these children have had to witness.
Right.
And
Right.
so when you see kids acting out of control, a lot of times when I finally sit down with the kids, it's deeper. It's something else also. And if we can kind of help them, with love, to address and feel safe to talk about certain things. Another issue that I had growing up was the people that would want to talk to me, counselors, they were book smart and they had all these PhDs and all these degrees, but they didn't have the experience. And so
Right.
when I sat in front of them, how you gonna help me? I kind of challenged them a lot, and I looked at
Right.
them and I discredited them. Today, now that I'm more educated, I have a different understanding, a different look, because some people, yeah, they do it for the money, and that's just that. But there's a lot of people that do it because they love people and they have a heart. They have a compassionate heart and they actually want to help change the world and know they haven't been through those things. And so, but at that time when I was growing up, I felt like, hey, these people are trying to treat me like a lab rat. What are you trying to study me for? I'm teaching you. They were studying me and I was teaching them. And I was a little child teaching them. And so
Right.
I didn't want to teach them. I wanted someone that said, hey, I've been through that. I was 5 years old too. I was this too. I was that too. And I was the
Right.
other too. And I needed that person to show up for me when I was at that broken state trying to figure out how to survive. I had to learn how to survive on my own. And that's why
Mm.
now I help others survive who have been through similar things.
Thank you for that. Like, how can someone get in touch with you? Like, if they wanted to have you come out and speak, or if they wanted to try to, I was about to say solicit, but no, if they wanted to actually reach out to you for counseling or coaching.
Okay, so if you Google Nancy V. Brown, you'll find me everywhere. That's just in case something happens to anything on social media or anything like that. My social media is Nancy V. Brown. My Facebook is Dr. Nancy V. Brown Willis. My website is nancyvbrown.com. I have other ones that are Dr. Nancy V. Brown. So if you reach out through Instagram, Facebook, and what's the other one, that the professional one that everybody's on, that's like a professional Facebook. What's that one called? Anyways,
I
if you
don't know.
Google, you'll find my pages. But my
Okay.
email is Nancy V. Brown 100. That's the number 100 at gmail.com. Again, my email is Nancy V for Vanessa Brown, the number 100 at gmail.com. And you can always reach me there. I check my email like 5 times a day or more. Yeah, so I do in-home sessions. I do virtual sessions. I have different fees for those. I have different fees for if I'm coaching someone who's just like, hey, I'm like, I went through a real bad divorce. I became a single parent. My ex-husband became a deadbeat parent, an absent parent, and or
Mm.
would not communicate with me out of pure bitterness. And that really affected my stage of depression during the time right after my divorce. And so like if somebody hits me up, it's like, hey, I'm going through a divorce, I'm going through a separation, I'm going through a hard breakup.
Right.
I'm a single parent, things are tough. I normally can reach out for resources and still, even if I don't know the answer, I can help coach. So I do coaching sessions for people that just need support and guidance. And then I do trauma recovery coaching.
Okay.
That's a little different. And so the fees are a little different. But again, if you Google Nancy B. Brown, you're going to find a way to find me.
Yes. And also email you, Nancy V as in Vanessa, Brown as in the color, the number 100 at gmail.com. Thank you for that. Is there any way that like people, if they wanted to donate or anything like that, do you have Zelle or Cash App or anything?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. My phone number, 617-834-3333. Definitely you're able to donate through that. Uh, Again, with Brave Girls Rise Up, there's a lot of things that I do. I go up to the lockup facilities for the youth, both the boys and the girls. Sometimes I bring mannequins. I teach them how to braid. I teach them how to lay tracks. They're out here
Mm-hmm.
laying up things, laying other things. So I try to teach them how to lay some tracks and make money the right way.
Right.
And be supportive and listen to them. And I think that that's really what's needed today. Is we have a communication um, conflict, and we have a big difference in culture right now, the way we grew up versus how they're growing up today. And so I just want to encourage parents to practice having some patience. Don't remember, I know that some of us are like, yo, when I was growing up, I would never be able to. We're dealing with a whole different breed. We have
Oh
access
my
to social
gosh.
media, internet, different things, and all of that. And so the way we do parenting today, don't let people judge you and talk about you. You have to do parenting different. You may have to allow some things you would never allow in order for your child not to run away and for your child to be home safely and not getting out there being pimped and or taken advantage of, killed or abused. And so we are in spiritual warfare. It is difficult. Just keep praying over your children. One thing I used to do for my daughter is when she was not around me, but she was running away and acting up, I would just close my eyes and I would just lay my hand forward and just pray like if I was literally touching her forehead. I remember I would put my hand out and pray over her and fight for her in the spirit, like if she was standing in front of me. So people don't know that, but I would literally, I'm shy. So a lot of times I don't like doing all this stuff in front of people, but I went in for my daughter. Okay, I had tears coming down and I was pleading the blood of Jesus Christ over her in the name of Jesus Christ, going in every word that I could think of that I was taught, every spiritual weapon came out and I fought for my daughter. Um, and yeah, and understanding that there's a lot of unaddressed trauma. Some of these youth have things that you don't know about. There's some things that they don't talk about and we don't know about. So creating some healthy boundaries and creating some healthy spaces, that maybe getting them someone they can speak to, getting them a mentor. I do advocacy work. I'm a mentor, youth mentor. I'm
Yeah.
a coach, I'm a counselor. I wear different hats because a lot of these places I've sat in, and so I understand what's needed in the background before they go into lockup facilities. And one last thing I do want to say, maybe not the last thing, but one thing that I really want to stand out to
Uh-huh.
the parents is don't lose hope. Don't let people talk death over your child.
Mm,
Sometimes you have to separate yourself and find a support group. Find a support group of other people that can understand what you're going through.
right.
But don't allow like people to be consistently speaking death over your child. How could you see the light and have hope if all you're hearing is negativity and death over your child? How bad they're doing. Don't you already know how bad they're doing? Now, what are we going to do to fix it? How can we help them? Let's
Right.
focus on the good and not the death. And so, yeah, don't lose hope.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. We have to be mindful of who's speaking to us and speaking over our life, and um that can be very detrimental. So again, your number for Zelle was 617
834
834
3333.
3333. So again, y'all want to reach Dr. Nancy to have her either speak, or if you need some one-on-one counseling or coaching, that's the person you want to reach. Her email address again is Nancy, Nancy, V as in Vanessa, Brown as in the color, the number 100@gmail.com. If you would like to support her in what God is doing in her life and how she's helping other people, feel free to Zelle her at 617-834-3333. Any final words, Dr. Nancy? I just thank you. I met you via I think it was a conference or something like that around the time of the sexual abuse uh, season or so. I think that's what, like April, the month of April last year, and you shared your story.
Mhm.
And then I know now we co-facilitate together a group. But anything else you would like to say? I just admire you for just who you are and all that you are. And you got a lot of hats, but you're doing great work.
Thank you.
You're
So we
welcome.
do co-facilitate a group called Healing and Thriving After Sexual Abuse. So if anyone's interested in that, please do reach out to Miss Christina, and we'll try to get you in that group. And that's a free support group. So that's a good resource to be connected to, so that you're not out here on your own. I just want to say again, I just want to thank God for allowing me to be used as a vessel. I remember so many times that I've thrown myself in prayer on the floor and cried to God and asked Him to use me as a vessel. And then I got mad at God and fought God, because how could you allow me to go through these things?
Oh my
And
gosh.
then I said,
Yes.
okay, God, I did say use me as a vessel. Oh Lord, I guess I had to have a test and a testimony and all this stuff
Right.
right here, so that people would hear me and listen to me. Because if I didn't go through those things, who will hear me and how could I help people? So, just be careful what you ask for, but just know that, God is faithful. And so after
Yes.
the pain and after the rain, the rainbow will come. And so just trust God in His promise. And that's what the rainbow stands for in the spiritual realm. God's promise to us, His children. And He loves you. He loves me. He loves us. And He's faithful. And so just know that you're never alone. In the spirit or in the earth. If you are going through crisis and you need someone to talk to, you can always Google the crisis text line, and you can text. That's for those people that don't like to speak or not ready to speak but want to text. I actually became one of their bilingual counselors on there
Mm. Oh,
at one point. So you can definitely Google crisis text line, and there's like you text like 734. It's a number. It's just
I
like
think
six
it's,
digits or something.
and I think it's
Seven four three
also,
one seven three.
and then you have
I don't know. But anyways, if you
yeah,
Google it, you'll see. And
yeah,
then the second thing is 988. And
988, yeah,
that's a crisis hotline.
right,
And that's also a suicide prevention hotline to, take over that 1-800 number that we had. It's the same line now, but it's easier to get to the 988. So if someone's experiencing a crisis, someone's experiencing signs of mental illness, depression, something that you are concerned about, feel free to call for them and ask questions and see what resources they'll be able to, give you that you can share with them. Sometimes calling 988 is better and safer than calling 911. It also helps not tie up the lines, because if it's not like a dying emergency at the moment, but it's still a situation that requires emergency support, dial that 988. Okay. And yeah, so I'm here, I'm available, and I'm also looking to support those parents who may have at-risk youth and may need some support along the journey, some counseling for you yourself and also for your child. Someone who's not
Yes.
going to judge you and will help you walk through your journey.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Thank you all for tuning in to Redemption and Recovery, When Suppressed Wounds Begin to Heal. Again, we had a wonderful guest tonight, Dr. Nancy V. Brown Willis, and she did provide her information. So if you're just now watching it, just kind of go back and watch the video over or the review, so that you'll be able to
The
get her
replay.
information. The replay. Thank you. I like the review.
It's
So
a lot of information.
watch the replay, get you some information, get you some encouragement, get you some coaching. So yeah. So thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a wonderful time. Until next time. Bye.
Take care.